Hi, this is Wayne Bilal, and this month's expert interview, we're meeting with Michelle McCullough. Sorry about that, almost lost your name. Definitely a serial entrepreneur. She's got a book out, and you'll have to tell me the title because I closed my Kindle and I don't know what I did with it.
The Time Blueprint for
There you
Entrepreneurs.
go. I had it here somewhere, and I took my notes, and I forgot to put the title on there.
No worries.
You've done a lot of things. Why don't you tell me a little bit about what you've done and your background, and you know,
Sure. I call myself an accidental entrepreneur because when I started my first business, I was 19, was working at an advertising agency, and we needed some promotional items. And back then, the internet was barely the internet, but I was looking for a way to find and fulfill some needs for a client. And I found a guy in Minnesota, and he said, you could just do this business and get the commissions, which I thought was really generous of him. But I started that promotional products company 14 years ago. And so now since then I've grown and started and developed and sold 8 different companies. I still run 3 businesses from home. And I'm the managing director for Startup Princess, an organization for women entrepreneurs where we do coaching and consulting and live events. And so I've just been in the entrepreneur space for a while now, and I just really enjoy working with other entrepreneurs and learning from my own mistakes along the way because it can be kind of a bumpy road. But that's just a little bit about me. I found that I love time management. I've always kind of been a productivity junkie. I had my first Franklin Day Planner when I was 12. So all of these, it's funny, but I tell people while most kids were asking for Gerbo jeans and Sony Walkmans, I was asking for a Franklin Day Planner, and my mom probably thought I was from another planet, but she was thrilled. And so it's kind of this book has kind of been where time management and entrepreneurship intersect, and I think that a lot of entrepreneurs struggle here. So I wanted to figure it out for myself, and once I figured it out and was able to share it with clients, that's kind of how the book came about.
and the book hit something right off the bat. You said something important. The greatest asset of an entrepreneur that they have in business. Why don't you tell me? Because you've doubled. You could be me. I've said it 1,000 times. So go ahead.
Sure. I believe to my core that every entrepreneur's greatest asset is their time, and it's either their greatest asset or their greatest liability. Because you can have $1 million in the bank and be horrible at managing your time, and you'll run your business into the ground in 5 seconds. I've seen people who get all kinds of venture capital funding, but they're still not managing their time in a way, and it doesn't matter how you manage your finances. If you're wasting that time, then you'll run your business right into the ground.
Yeah, that's what I've often said. It's the one thing that you can't buy more of. You got 24
Exactly.
hours, that's it. And how you use it makes the biggest difference because what you said in the book is the opportunity cost. It actually costs you money.
Yep.
And that's pretty excellent. What you said that was a little bit different that I liked was the way you set up the 5 main hats. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, I found for myself, like, I am a huge fan of doing, I call myself a time pincher. There's penny pinchers and there are time pinchers. And I want to figure out how to get things done as quickly as possible. And it's not about being sloppy, but it's about being effective. And so I started to figure out for my own businesses that there are 5 main hats that every entrepreneur wears. There's a marketing hat where you do all of your promoting for your business. There's a creating hat where you're either creating products or creating programs if you're a service-based business. There's a fulfilling hat where you're actually fulfilling those orders, whether that's one-on-one with a client or doing shipping. There's also what I call managing time, where you do a lot of your admin tasks that are not revenue generating activities. And the last is learning time so that you can always keep up on the industry trends and also keep up on success principles and personal development as well. So those 5 time categories apply to everything you do in your business, and figuring out how to time block those activities together bring greater effectiveness because you're doing all of your marketing tasks with your marketing hat on and your creation tasks with your creation hat on. So it's about kind of time blocking all of those together and helping you be more effective in the time that you actually spend instead of going down a to-do list and hopping from one thing to the next, and your brain can't wrap around it very fast. But if you can block those things together, then you can find greater success in what you do.
That's excellent. And I liked that's pretty simplistic, but it's pretty deep. I mean, because I've read a ton of books on time management, One thing I don't think they spend enough time on is the fulfilling
Yes.
and on the learning. I can't imagine, I can't even remember another book that I read on time management that said anything about learning. Why
Mhm.
is the fulfillment? I mean, you talked about balance a little bit on that and how it can affect your profits. Actually,
Sure.
can you go into that
Um,
a little bit?
Yeah, so fulfilling time is really interesting because and there's two different ways to look at this. So if you're listening to this, I encourage you to kind of put your own hat on. There are two types of businesses. There's a product-based business and there's a service-based business. And product-based businesses are shipping physical products. They might have a retail store, but in that sense, you're spending a lot of time getting things from where you are to where the customer is. That can be shipping, it can be the distribution of it, and it's important to make sure that that's a streamlined process. But for service based businesses, and a lot of entrepreneurs have some sort of element of service in their business, that's where you're meeting one on one with clients. You know, for you, Wayne, as a consultant, the time that you actually spend with your clients is your fulfilling time. And that's
Hmm.
really valuable and important. But it's also important to do some of those things together and batch them to create some consistency there. Because what we do is we look at our calendar and somebody says, "Hey, when can I meet with you?" And we look at our calendar and find openings, and that could be any given day. But as we do that, we're taking away some efficiency in other areas instead of saying, my consulting time is Tuesdays and Thursdays or Monday, Wednesdays, and Friday afternoons, and getting to a place where we're in the zone of clients. And again, not hopping from one thing to the next, because they say it takes about 15 minutes for the brain to get into an activity, really committed to that activity. And everybody, they also did a study, and I pointed this out in the book from Basek's research, where people are typically interrupted within 22 minutes of starting a project. So if it takes you 15 minutes to get in and then you're interrupted 22 minutes in, then you're only getting about 7 minutes of efficiency. But figuring out how to do that together really sets your brain and sets you up to succeed instead of setting yourself up to fail. And so that fulfilling time is so critical. And that doesn't mean it's more important than some of the others. I say the most important three are marketing, creating, and fulfilling, but making sure that you're connecting with your clients in a way that they feel like they're not being a distraction, but that they're a critical part of your business is really key.
And that's kind of, it took me a long time to learn that. I mean, and sometimes my creating time can't happen here. 22 minutes?
Right.
I wish it was 22 minutes.
Right.
My interruptions are more like every 2.2 minutes,
Right.
because that's just the nature of the beast sometimes. So when I want to create, I'll do it at home. I'll do it almost anywhere else. The fulfilling, I joke, but it's true. I get more done on Saturday sometimes than I did on the 5 days before, and it's just the
Yeah.
nature of what we do. So I mean, the blocking really helps. I mean, I started doing that maybe 3, 4 years ago, where it was like, and it made it easy on me because I don't make my own appointments anymore. I just turn it over to the secretary. Here's the blocks. This is where you can put people. Don't ask me. Don't tell me. That's where they are. If it's full, then they come to me. It took them a while to realize I was serious. Then you go to next week. This week's full because I have to do the 5 things. Learning, talk about that a little bit because well, let's back up a second because truthfully, what I run into, especially with consultants, and I bet you've seen this with people that are in the service industry, is the feast or famine concept because they don't balance the marketing with the fulfilling. And I'm sure you've seen that
Right.
too, have you not?
Yes, for sure. I always say that marketing is like the laundry. The job is never done. Like there's never really a check mark. There's always something dirty on you. And same thing with marketing is there's always something to do. But what's important about marketing is taking it off the to-do list and making it regular activities. And with marketing, and I don't go into this in the book, and I should have, but marketing really needs to be something where you think to yourself, if I want my pipeline to be full and I want my pipeline to be gushing, then it can't be project based and to do list based. It has to be me saying to myself as a business owner, okay, what are the daily things I need to be doing to market my business? What are the weekly things I need to be doing to market my business? What are the monthly things I need to be doing? And kind of breaking out those activities. And then when you're in your marketing time, you're doing those tasks, the daily tasks, the weekly tasks, but keeping on top of it. It's not just running a campaign and then hoping that the leads trickle in, forever. It's constantly running campaigns and constantly keeping that at the forefront of your mind so that the business is always there.
Yeah, and that's in our last issue. If somebody hasn't gotten it, they need to read it. We put our monthly worksheet in there, our monthly planning worksheet. And inside, business is basically pretty easy. Get the money, keep the money, and systemize your business. And then I break it
Right.
out in the get the money section. I've added a part that we really say, marketing to current customers, marketing to new customers, and then getting systems for your marketing. Because the thing I see is that, in 9 times out of 10, I'm telling people, if you can't do it, you need to outsource it. No,
Amen.
you can't outsource the planning and the ideas. That has to be
No.
you. But the implementation is something that you can easily do. And I don't want to waste time on that, but get somebody, if you want to see more on that, her book, well worth it. We're going to have a link to it too. So if you're watching this, go to the link in the magazine. You'll see that. You had a workbook that I looked at and downloaded, which was pretty slick. You had a different way of doing a time audit, as I call it. And talk about that a little bit, because that's like your exercise one. And I agree with you. First, you got to figure out what's going on. So,
Yeah, and this depends on the person, but oftentimes I do a one-on-one strategy sessions that are just one-time productivity to profit. And so really I'm all about helping people get out there. But what I do is before I'll ever meet with them, I have them take a week to write down everything that they do in each of those categories, those 5 hats that we talked about: marketing, creating, fulfilling. And so their job is just to keep track of how much time they're spending, what they're doing every day, how they kind of bounce back and forth. But before we even do that, I have them guess. How many hours a week do you think you're spending in marketing? How many hours a week do you think you're spending in creating? How many hours a week do you think that you're doing other things? And it's really important that you check that first, but that you also can say, hey, this is where I actually am.
I think I'm going to steal that, because I bet you see a big difference between what they think is happening and what's really happening.
Yes.
And that's pretty slick.
And so what's interesting about that is that we think that we're spending a lot of time on marketing, and yet we don't. And marketing is one of those things that in our to-do list, it just gets pushed from one thing to the next, instead of actually being something that you focus on and do. And so when you're doing that little time audit, when you're actually getting those tasks done and you're keeping track of what you do, sometimes people will start to do more just because they see that it's on there. But really it gives you a good idea of saying, this is what I actually do. And then you can really look at it and say, okay, what can really be delegated? After you have that big list, what really can be delegated so that you're not doing everything? Because I'm with you. I've said the same thing you say, Wayne. I say that when you don't have the ideas, you can't outsource the marketing, you can't outsource the messaging of your business, but you can outsource the execution of your business.
Mm-hmm. And that's so much easier nowadays than it was. There's so many online Odesk and things like that, Elance and Fiverr. There's so many things. One of the things I liked was your delegation. You look just like I always. The delegation, the way you did it, I kind of like it's easy to delegate the stuff that's below you.
Yes.
It's hard to delegate the stuff that's not in your specialty.
Yes.
Talk about that a little bit.
Well, we all wear this hat as solo entrepreneurs. So the key with delegation is, because as solo entrepreneurs, I mean, there are a lot of people out there who might have virtual assistants, but they wear this hat saying, I'm a solo entrepreneur, I have to do it all. And that, I think, is one of the biggest mistakes that entrepreneurs make, is that just because you're a solo entrepreneur doesn't mean you can't outsource things that are not your specialty. I tell entrepreneurs that you need to outsource 2 things. Things that should be done by someone with a lower pay scale, so virtual assistant tasks, simple things, data entry, but then you also need to outsource things that are not your strength. Because again, that's one of those things that makes it a liability in your business. Mm-hmm. One of the examples I give in the book is a graphic designer client of mine who said that she had to do bookkeeping because she couldn't afford to outsource it and she couldn't afford to pay somebody. And I asked her, how much do you make an hour? And she said $75. And I said, well, how much do you spend on your accounting? And she said, well, I spend about 1 to 2 hours a week. And I said, so how much would it cost you? And she's like, oh, it's $35 an hour. And I'm like, well, if you could actually spend 2 hours working on your business, you'll make $150 and you'll only spend $70 in getting your bookkeeping done. And what was happening with her is that because she hated it and she wasn't good at it, it was getting pushed from week to week to week. And then she wasn't invoicing her clients. She didn't have money. Mm-hmm. And she's running into this trap of, not being able to pay her bills because she hasn't billed her clients for the work that she's already done. And so even though that seems like a skill that you think, oh, I'm just going to learn, and yes, I can plug through QuickBooks and I can get that done. Outsource accounting. For a lot of entrepreneurs that are creative types, the accounting is the easiest thing to outsource and one of the most critical and most crucial. And, my accountant is one of my best business advisors. Yeah. So simple things that you can do, I'm sure, like when you are in that same space where you can provide a lot of value added resources to your companies because you can see things that they can't see because that's not their specialty.
Right.
So delegation is key. Really, it's about making sure that you're saving money on lots of fronts, and that you shouldn't, again, by the same token, you shouldn't be doing tasks that a $10 an hour assistant can be doing.
Right. And I use, dirty little secret, you can use this. I don't do my own accounting. That's not what I should be doing.
Right.
My wife has an accounting degree. She does it for me. But I mean, the reason I don't, it's not that I can't do it. It's not what I should be doing. And I use that when I'm talking to my clients. It's like, as a business owner, I should be doing only those things that affect the customer, which means the fulfilling, in your case, of the marketing. And that's it. Everything else has to be thrown away. And I use different examples both above and below because I tried to fix my computer one time, and I spent a day and a half when I first started. And a friend of mine that just started his computer business came in a half hour, fixed it. And I said, well, that was fast. And he goes, I would have done it twice as fast, but you tried to fix it first. Since then, my deal with him is I call you, you come fix it. I don't touch it.
Right.
And another time, too, I tried to go in the other way. I tried to do the mailers in-house and everything. And I had my kids, and I would get them, I figured, I'll put them to work. And I would get things back with no stamp or no address. And when they went to school, I sent it to a mailing house, and these guys did it faster, better, and cheaper. And I was like, this is dumb. I mean, so, we all learn the hard way, but, that's pretty much there. I know we're kind of in a hurry, but I like that. I liked what you did and how you did that, so the book is worth looking at it for that. Time maps, since we're running a little bit out of time, I want to get into that. Talk to me about a time map. You touched on it a little bit, but can you go into it a little bit more detail?
Sure. I think that the principle of time maps, another complaint that I get from a lot of entrepreneurs that are creatives are, Michelle, I'm just not built to organize my time. I like to be kind of free-flowing. I like to kind of go with the flow or take what comes. And so they're kind of adverse to calendars and schedules. And what I say to those people is that we are in a calendar-driven world. Monday comes after Sunday. Saturday comes after, it all happens. The clock ticks whether you want it or not. And your brain is a lot more wired to a calendar than you think it is. And as I've tried all different kinds of calendars, and I've had my clients try different kinds of calendars, we really are in a weekly setting. The best way to look at a calendar and to look at productivity is in a weekly framework. Now, if you work on a monthly calendar now and that's working for you, great. I always say the best time management system is the one that you actually use. Mm-hmm. But for those who don't have one, I encourage you to try a weekly approach. The workbook that comes with the book itself is a download, and it's just a printable that you can use and kind of plug in. But what I like about the time map is that though I'm all about routines, and like Tuesday is my video day because I have a meeting early Tuesday morning. That means I know my makeup and my hair is going to be done. And so I always record my videos on Tuesdays. But from time to time, there's an assembly at school I need to go to, or a dentist appointment that can only fit me in on Tuesday. And so the beauty of a time block is being able to look at your week and saying, okay, I know I need 2 hours for video, and I'm not going to get it on Tuesday morning. Where else can I put it? So you can move those blocks around. It's almost like a puzzle piece, and saying, okay, well, here, if once I figure out my time and once I know I need to spend 3 hours doing this and 4 hours doing that, and I can break those up, I can really put them wherever. And though we do like routines, it's not necessarily a matter of making sure that it's done at the same time every single week, but just that it's done every week. Mm-hmm. And so using a time map can be an easy way to kind of wrap your arms back around time management in a way to make sure that you are getting the things done that you need to, and allowing yourself the flexibility, because life happens. Life's going to life you. Things are going to change, but it's okay then to move some of those blocks around. But the important part, like I've said before, is moving things off to-do lists and on calendars, because when we make appointments with our business and we make appointments with ourselves, we're really honoring that, and we're setting ourselves, or telling our brain, hey, listen, you know what? On Thursday at 4, we're going to be doing some writing time. And so you're telling your brain to prepare for that, and your brain sees it on a calendar. And sometimes those time blocks as entrepreneurs are just as important as lunch with a friend, date night with a spouse, a meeting with a client, because we need to be getting those things done on a routine, systemized basis.
Yeah, otherwise they will never happen.
Yeah, they're just going to be pushed from week to week.
And I know this from experience. It's taken a long time to get to a point. I skipped something I didn't mean to skip, and that's what happened. I write them in order and just decide to talk. Sorry.
That's it.
Going back to your 5 categories. So in the book you talked about, you kind of gave a rule of thumb, how much time I should be spending in each of the categories. I think that was important enough to cover.
Yeah.
Could you go into that? And obviously they're going to be different, but the rough rule of thumb.
Generally speaking, so there are a couple of differences. And the 2 main differences really happen in the fulfilling place. So if you're a product-based business, you probably will spend less time in shipping and distribution than consultants and service-based businesses do with clients. But generally speaking, I say that 75% of your time is spent in marketing, creating, and fulfilling. And sometimes it's an even, 25%, 25%, 25%. But it's really just keeping track of that for yourself and figuring out what works best in your business. And sometimes those will change a little bit. So generally speaking, from week to week, you probably will spend a third of your time in marketing, a third of your time in creating, and a third of your time in fulfilling. But then you still have those other 2 categories, the managing and the learning. And I say that learning itself is probably about 10% of your week. If you're doing a 40-hour work week, you should spend about 4 hours a week in learning and development and growth, because that's important too. And putting that on the calendar instead of a to-do list is just as critical as your marketing time. And your managing time really should be about the same. I usually go about 15% in managing. And so the goal here is not just to be doing those admin tasks yourself, but turning all those admin tasks over to someone else, and then you're spending that time managing those people. So I have 5 different virtual assistants. None of them work out of my office. My office is my home. I have 1 overseas. I've got 1 in Virginia. I've got 2 who work semi-locally, but again, they don't work in my office. And so my managing time is spent with regular meetings with them. So I have 30-minute calls once a week with my sales team. I've got a 30-minute call with my virtual assistant to kind of go through her to-do list. And so my managing time really isn't me doing any admin tasks, but it's managing the people who are doing those tasks for me. And so that's still important. But again, you also don't want to get to a place where you're spending so much time managing other people that you're losing time in marketing and the creating as well. But the creating is important too. A lot of people forget that. You should always be creating new products and services, and setting yourself up in a space where you can have that creative time is really good too.
That's important. I like everything you said there. The virtual office that you have running. We did an article, and I was interested to see that last month, that still close to 58% of businesses are home-based. Mm-hmm. There's the shift happening, and it's happened under our feet when we weren't looking, I guess. And
yep.
The tradition, and a good percentage of them are female-operated because of the freedom, supposedly. I'm not so sure sometimes, but that's just the way it is. Anyways. Well, if people want to get more information from you, we're going to have the links and all that. But is there something like your radio show? Excellent. Can you talk a little bit about that? I know it's not this, but just kind of. Sure. I think people really ought to check that out. I think it's a heck of a good resource you're doing.
Make It Happen Radio is a radio show that I hold every Monday. It's at 5 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Eastern. You can listen easily from your computer. All of the shows turn into podcasts after the fact. So it is a live show. People can call in and ask questions. I do have live guests. But after the fact, that just turns into an audio podcast. I tell my clients that if they don't know where to start with learning, you can always listen to one of my radio shows. But really, one of I really feel like my sole purpose and mission is to help busy entrepreneurs grow thriving businesses without sacrificing a meaningful personal life. And I know that it's possible. And so what we talk about on Make It Happen is a mix between business principles, marketing, and search engine optimization, and press and public relations, and virtual assistants. But then we also talk about the success principles behind that, the mindset piece, the confidence, overcoming failure, all of those things, how to run your day, time management. So it's kind of a mix of both, because as entrepreneurs, we really need both to make sure that I don't believe that we have to sacrifice a personal life or a professional life to grow under the other. So it's really about making both work and in a way that makes you feel confident and also helps you feel like you're fulfilling your goals and dreams.
Sometime in the future, I intend to call you on that. So, be
Great.
pretty good. Anyways, anything you want to talk about that I missed before we hang up, or did we cover the book pretty well?
No, I think that we covered the book pretty well. There's some other details in the book that we didn't talk about, but what I think more than anything else, what I say to entrepreneurs is that you want to make time your friend and not your enemy. It's not a ticking time bomb, and yes, it is not a renewable resource. So the clock's going to go by whenever you get it, but the stress of it, it can really be a bigger detriment than anything else. And you can either run your day or your day can run you. And so it's a matter of just taking that time to do a little bit of planning. And I say the word plan, and people, it's like a four-letter word, la 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 la. I don't know what that is, but just a little bit of planning can go a long way to owning your day and really owning your business and owning your paychecks. So that's kind of my final note on that.
And one of the things you said in preserving your schedule and sanity, that section by itself, get the book, read it. That's well worth it. Because, every business, like for us, what we just went through and what we're about to go through, I call it harvest time.
Yes.
It's like the old farmers, sundown to sun up. Everything else goes on the back burner because that's what you got to do.
Yep.
All right. Starting later than we do. I actually get in more trouble when I have time. That's when I need to plan. I don't need to plan for the deadlines because I know what I got to get done.
Right.
It's when the deadlines aren't there, and if I don't plan, then I don't create. I don't market. Because there's nothing yelling at me that needs to get done at that time. And that's why this is a very important thing. With your permission, I usually don't send the feature articles and the feature interviews to my email list and of my clients and everything. But this one's important enough that I'm going to make an exception if that's all right with you. I think they need to hear this and get your book. It's only $2.99 on Amazon. The link's here. Definitely get it. Michelle, thank you very much. I really appreciate your time. And thank you. Look forward to listening to your shows in the future, too. Maybe I'll call. I never hear anything live, though.
Yeah, I know, and it's fine. Sometimes
it's
crickets, and sometimes there's people, and I get it, but there's a lot of listeners.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you having me on. I appreciate it a lot.
All right.